Senator Patrick.
Thank you very much, Chair. I hope you can hear me.
Yep.
Thank you. My question, I'll start with Professor Skerritt, if I may. Just in relation to COVID-19, which is also known as Spikogen. My understanding is that has now got provisional accreditation by the TGA. Can you just tell me what that actually means, and then next steps associated with that particular protein vaccine?
John Skerritt, head of TGA. I think there's some confusion. Spikogen, sorry, you're talking about the Novavax vaccine, is a protein-based vaccine.
The COVID-19.
Okay. So it's got a provisional. So there's two protein vaccines that have been in the news lately. The first is the Novavax one, which has a provisional approval. The second one is the South Australian developed, Iranian trialled COVAX vaccine that I understand you're referring to. Now, it's got a provisional determination. So what that means is that for any provisional determination, it's when a company comes to us and says, this is a serious condition, we have promising early data, and that means that they are then eligible to apply for provisional approval. Now, we provided that determination a little while ago. We've met with the company. They have not yet put in a full submission, although we're expecting one soon. Once we receive their submission, we'll review it with the utmost urgency. One of the challenges, of course, is that their clinical trials have been conducted in Iran. And while we don't require clinical trials for any vaccine or medicine to be conducted here in Australia, obtaining information, for example, on the oversight of the clinical trials and so forth is a little bit more challenging with the Islamic Republic of Iran compared with some other countries, but we're working on that with the company.
Yeah, I think they were forced into that position by the Department of Health. We'll come back to that later, and that's not a criticism of you, Professor. So what's the likely time from their action to essentially TGA approval? I know how long's a piece of string question, but yes, typically how long does it take?
Unfortunately it is, and it depends on the quality and completeness of a submission. So if you, for example, look at the Pfizer vaccine, that was approved in a matter of some weeks. On the other hand, the Novavax vaccine, where they moved their manufacturing facilities several times and essentially almost had to start again with validating their manufacturing process, that took many months. And so it will first of all depend what they apply for, what group of patients and so forth, and then secondly, what data they're able to provide to us. And so all I can say is that we've also accept data on what we call a rolling basis. So they can give us data on the manufacturing, and they can give us data on the clinical trials at a later stage. They can give us data on the quality tests at a later stage. So we will work with them to have the most speedy review possible, but obviously the review has to be complete so that we're convinced of the safety, quality and efficacy of the product.
So again, what would be the minimum time frame? What would you expect as a...
The minimum time from receipt of a complete application could be a matter of 6 or so weeks. We do go to an external committee. But I do need to emphasise that's on the basis of receipt of a complete application. We're also well aware that this is a small company that is essentially a couple of people providing most of the data and so forth, whereas a typical vaccine submission probably has several dozen, if not 100 staff working on it from one of the big pharma companies. And so a lot will also be dependent on the company's ability to come back to us to answer our questions. With a rolling submission, it's a bit like a conversation. You get some material, you ask questions, the company responds. And so a lot will depend on how quickly they can get back with their responses.
Okay, and can you confirm, I think you just said it, the vaccine they've currently got, which is approved in Iran, is manufactured in Iran?
It's manufactured in Iran by a company called Synergen. And again, the challenge will be getting information on the manufacturing processes. So, for example, for even though, of course, international travel has been difficult under COVID, when we have a vaccine manufactured in the US or in Germany or in the UK, we're able to go to the British regulator, which is one of the international group of regulators, and say, can you basically give all your records? Or if there's something we want to check on, can you visit there with a GoPro and show us the equipment? The Iranian regulator is not a member of the global group of regulators, and so there will be some challenges there.
Okay, thank you. That's my question to the TGA, but I'll now come back to the Department of Health and the Minister. What Professor Skerritt said is correct in that that's 19, a very small company. But would you agree that actually one of the jobs of government is to help the small companies become larger companies? See Australian companies being, and that sometimes requires a little bit of help from government.
Well, Senator, obviously this local company is doing some significant work. They've put in place a number of processes to develop their product. As Professor Skerritt has indicated, the TGA is working cooperatively with them in a rolling process to support that rather than having a stringent apply, reject or approve process. And so I think in that sense, the work that the TGA is doing with the company is actually supporting him in that way. It's actually supporting the development of their product by going through a rolling process.
To be clear, my criticism is not of the TGA. I understand they have actually been very helpful. But if we go back to the history of what happened here, was that the Adelaide company applied for a grant back in April 2020. Unfortunately, the grant went to University of Queensland. In total, no one's been able to see anything relating to that grant application. That whole MRFF is a corruption incubator. Of course, UQ failed. Unsurprisingly, the Adelaide company has been developing and delivering vaccines internationally. UQ had never done a vaccine in the past. So we end up with a situation where the Australian company had to go to Iran to get approvals or to do their phase 2 and phase 3 clinical trials. So they've done that now, and we've just heard the extra burden that will create on this company as it seeks TGA approval. My next problem, or the understanding of the next problem, if they get approval, there's difficulty in terms of manufacturing, again, because of the small size. And I'm interested in noting the failure of the department to in any way assist this company, what they will do to make sure that this vaccine can get manufactured in Australia. And that may involve putting a little bit of pressure on companies like CSL, or even just assisting the company. And I'm asking what the department will do to assist them finding a manufacturing home here in Australia for the South Australian vaccine.
Senator, I just might start by my understanding is that the company did receive some funding from government. I think the grant was $1 million. So they haven't been completely unsupported, and I might throw to Dr. Murphy to elaborate on that.
So, Senator, in the medical research commercialisation initiative, which was the COVID-19 round 3 grant opportunity, they received $1 million as part of that, along with some people developing mRNA vaccines. It is, I mean, if you've referred to the UQ company, but they really had a very strong partnership with CSL, and we would expect a company that had a promising vaccine to.
Oh, we've lost everybody, haven't we? Oh, no,
yeah. So the
It's
UQ.
come back. Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, sure. So they certainly, as you have acknowledged, they did apply for earlier competitive MRFF grant processes, and they weren't successful on the basis of the independent peer review, and that was an independent process. And I know we've discussed at great length your concerns.
A secret independent process, yes.
Yes.
We now go
Senator
back and look at
Patrick.
that process.
Okay, Senator Patrick. Senator Patrick, can I just stop? Professor Murphy, you've not finished. Can he just finish his answer? It's impossible when you talk over the top of each other.
Sure.
Yeah.
So they did not, at their science, as the assessment at the process was that their vaccine or their process was not as far advanced as others, but later on in the further grant process, as we've identified, they did get $1 million. I think the issue with UQ is that they had very promising phase 1 trial data, and they formed a strong partnership with CSL. That was not a government did not bring them together. Government did not say to them, you must work together to manufacture the UQ vaccine. UQ and CSL got together and they said, you have an exciting vaccine, we will develop it, and then they came to government with a proposal. So I do understand the frustration of Professor Petrovsky, but these MRF processes, we do defend their independence.
Okay, Senator Patrick, you don't have much longer, so...
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll just point out, they are done in complete secrecy. Surely the Department of Health can now look back and say the wrong choice was made. And actually that should have been apparent from the lack of experience that UQ had in all of this. So I'd like a commitment that you go back and have a look at how the Department of Health or MRF got this so wrong. And secondly, noting the amount of money we've thrown at CSL to assist in terms of things like having AstraZeneca manufactured here, is the government willing to assist an Australian company have manufacturing done here in Australia for both Australia and the world? And that might be a question for the Minister.
Yeah, thanks. Well, Senator, it is a different portfolio, and so my comments will be pretty generic in that sense, but the government has announced a strategy to promote the development of appropriate technologies in Australia through the industry portfolio is my recollection, and so we are actively looking to do those things. We have made investments, as has been discussed by PM&C today, in relation to mRNA manufacturing. There's some work that's being done with a number of advanced manufacturing businesses around the country to promote sovereign capacity, and we'll continue to look at that, and those options remain open to businesses such as this one, and I'm sure that the appropriate minister would be prepared to receive representations through the processes that support those grant programs.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Minister. And look, sure, and maybe this is a case of, Minister, if you'd undertake to help me offline, making sure that I can connect to the right players inside government to give support to a sovereign company with a fantastic background that has actually been fettered by the department to date in terms of being able to advance what has now become, looks like it's about to become a very successful vaccine.
Okay. Is that it? No
So,
questions?
Senator, I'm happy to engage with you.
Okay.
I'm sure other
All right.
of my colleagues would too.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.